Become a podcast buddy now and get exclusive access to the new podcast episodes. You can find more information about this on my website schulze-kopp.de.
Welcome to this podcast.
Water Polo Expert Talk. Get the insights. Welcome and to the next thrilling guest of the podcast here. So we have the first one from South Africa today. Welcome to the podcast. Really glad to have you here. I hope we will have a great conversation here today because it's as mentioned before the first one from another area of the world. So we do not cover already. So I'm happy to have you here and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here, and it was a pleasure to be in Berlin earlier in the year when we met, and hopefully we can have a good conversation about water polo.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the plan, to have this kind of conversation about water polo. Maybe at the beginning, as always, I started the introduction by the guest, by yourself. So I would like to hand it over to you, maybe to give all the audience here a little bit more about your background of water polo and of your person, maybe. So I hand it over to you.
Cool. So I think, like most water polo coaches, I started out as a young player in South Africa. I'm not sure if you're aware, but our system is quite different to Europe. We have water polo at the schools in our country, which I know is very different to how things are done in Europe via clubs and so on. So I started playing water polo at the school I was at. I had sort of relative success as a player. I then, once I finished school, I did a gap year and went to New Zealand, of all countries, where I actually played rugby, which is obviously a big sport in our country. And then I came back and thought it would be a good idea to go to university, where I studied at the University of Stellenbosch, which is just outside Cape Town. And when I was there, I sort of almost fell back in love with water polo, but in a different aspect. You know, I always tell everyone that I didn't have the time to train, to play, but I had time to coach. But in truth, I was probably just too lazy to put in all the time required to play at the adequate level. So I started coaching water polo as a student to make a little bit of pocket money while I was studying at a school in Stellenbosch. And then as time went on, I was very lucky. The school decided to sort of invest in a young man at the time, and I actually got a permanent role working as the manager of our aquatics program at the school Paul Roos Gymnasium, where I still work now. That's my full-time job. From there, I obviously ran the school's age group programs. I got involved with the University of Stellenbosch, which is the university in our town. And then from there, slowly progressed into the senior setups. I was fortunate enough to take the World Student Games team in 2017. And the men's coach at that time went along with me. I then became his assistant coach in Gwangju, I think it was, in 2019, and then Tokyo Olympics 2021. And then after that, he stepped down as the men's coach. He started a family, and then I sort of inherited and took over that role with the my first world champs as a senior coach in Budapest. Sure, when was it? Was it last year? Yeah, last year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then obviously the World League in your home country, the beginning of this year, and then looking to Fukuoka in Japan in, I think it's 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not really far away. Yeah. So the next big tournament for you and your team. So all this about your personal history of a player and as a coach. So it sounds to me that you really took every chance on the pass. Yeah. So to be the head coach now of the senior men's team. Are there any? So you told or you mentioned the situation or the reason to be a coach, to book some pocket money during the study time. Are there also any idea about being coach at the end during your active career, or was it somehow by accident that you go this path?
I think, to be honest, it was actually by accident. And I think I realized while I was, studying and working for pocket money that I really just enjoyed working with teams and with groups of people. And I think that was where my passion drew me back to, or not back, but drew me into coaching. And then water polo had always been a massive passion of mine. Rugby as well as a South African male, but yeah, I'm not sure. For me, that was my calling. That was where my interests were, and that was where I drew the most joy from. So that's kind of worked out by accident, but it's worked out pretty well so far.
Yeah. So you mentioned already rugby several times right now as also one of the biggest biggest sports in your country or in the area. What you say is water polo, or one at which stage of awareness is water polo in South Africa then, instead of rugby, hockey, or whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, South Africa is a very sporting nation. I think our school systems promote a lot of sports. For example, at the school that I'm at, we offer, I think it's 14 sports in total. So it's water polo, football, swimming, tennis, chess, all of that. I think one of our problems, obviously, is that we're a developing nation, or a third world country. So then after school, unfortunately, funding becomes the big problem. We've always had rugby, and we've always had success with rugby. So rightfully so, rugby gets a substantial part of the funding. They're a very marketable sport. They play on a global stage regularly. So the finances are there for. Well, we're the defending world champions. So from a South African context, we have a lot of sports, but the sports that are professional, I would say, are rugby, cricket, and football. The rest are either fully amateur or semi-professional.
Yeah. So then we have maybe some similar situation here in Germany with the soccer or football. Yeah, that everybody is running to soccer or football and playing, and also all the kids are maybe in the first moment are going to play soccer or football here in Germany. So then we have some kind of a similar situation. Yeah, that water polo is not really on the highest awareness level of the audience, of the people here in the country. But do you have also some problems or challenges to get also kids to coming to water polo? Because you already mentioned the system in South Africa, which is quite different to the other countries in Europe, maybe. But it's somehow the same as in the US, maybe. So are there any similar situations, or what makes the system in the school system, and maybe also the system to find kids to play these sports special?
I think there are a lot of similarities to the US. I think we don't necessarily struggle to find kids to play water polo. We've actually got quite a relatively large base of kids playing water polo, especially in high school. I think where our system is then different to the US is that their collegiate system is very strong. There's your scholarships and bursaries to play water polo after school, university. Whereas in South Africa, the money dries up once our athletes leave school. So we have a large dropout of water polo players and athletes after they graduate from high school, so 17, 18 years old. just because there are opportunities available to them, and then the funding, costing, going on tours, all of these things add up and become more expensive, and the guys eventually just they end up wanting to get a degree and work and earn money. So there's no real pathway for a water polo player to do it financially. Whereas if you're a rugby player, after school you're getting a contract, you're playing for a professional union, there's a career pathway for you. So I think similar to Germany, except your battles with football.
It sounds very familiar, yeah. So, but then really the difference, or the main difference between your system in South Africa and the US is really, as you mentioned, then the point at the end of the studying, yeah. So saying, okay, I try to find a job maybe where I know what the path is and development path in the business area, because I do not know what happens in the water polo area, because there is no development path pre-configured, maybe, yeah. So as in other sports, yeah. So and then it's really then the chance, the situation that they do not have really the challenge to find kids and athletes to play water polo until a certain level. Yeah. So at this point, then they have to decide, okay, do I go the water polo way or the business and money way? Maybe try to start a family and kids and wife and man and whatever. Yeah. So there are other aspects than the more important at this point.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's about it. So I mean, we work in the national setup. We've got guys that are either still at university, so they have time to train and play, or guys who are working in a professional environment that allows them to possibly train and play and have flexible leave in order to go to the various tournaments. So that's sort of how the team's compromised at the moment.
So do you have really, I'm not really sure if we mentioned this earlier, so do you have really a league then in South Africa with several clubs? Maybe also not on the highest level then, but do you have a regular league?
Competition, yeah. So again, I'll everything unfortunately comes back to money. So South Africa is a relatively big country, so we've basically got but within our sort of provinces, I'm not sure if you know what that means, but so effectively I live in Stellenbosch, which is a part of the Western Cape province. So we play in the University of Stellenbosch team that our coach plays in the Western Cape League, where there are 4 other teams, and then up north, which is in Johannesburg, which is about a 2-hour flight from Cape Town, they have a local league, and then Durban or KwaZulu-Natal, which is another province, they also have a local league, and then we'll get together once a year for the national club competition, which is where a lot of the selection takes place for the national teams, and then there are 2 or 3 other sort of various club tournaments around the year that you can decide if you want to go to, depending on the funding, leave, etc. So we don't have a national league per se, like you guys have in Germany, but we've got sort of provincial leagues, and then we have one big national competition every year.
Then it's somehow the same maybe with the second division here in Germany, so where we have also 4 divisions, if you say divisions, and in this case, and all the teams playing in this area, playing in the division, and once a year you have then the chance to come to the first league, then from the second league, from the second division, and then maybe the setup maybe then is quite the same as in South Africa, but which brings me maybe to the next question for you personally as a coach during the year as a main job in your area, in your college, so that you say, okay, I'm not really full-time the national coach. all the year, but I must have the chance to see and be in touch and be in contact with all the players potentially playing for the national team, which makes it not so easy then for you personally for the job as a national coach. Yeah. So how do you try to get this managed over the year, maybe to get in touch or stay in touch with the people and see also maybe games from other divisions to see, okay, there's a player here and there. How do you manage all these kind of aspects?
Yeah, so that is tricky. I see obviously all the players in our region fairly regularly, but unfortunately I don't get to see the guys who are playing in Johannesburg or in Durban as much as I would like to. Again, funding plays a role there, and logistics, and that's why we have the sort of national competition, so that I get to have a look. I can see all those players playing with and against each other at the same time, and from there we try and our squads for the respective tournaments. And from there, try and work out the national men's team. But I think what's been nice recently is that we've kept a sort of core group of players together. So I know what those guys are about, what they're doing, how they play, and then we've made one or two changes for the respective tournaments, certainly since I've taken over. So I think there is a better understanding of everyone and where everyone's playing and what they're doing, but it's not a perfect situation for me as the head coach.
Yeah. So, and this maybe then is also a challenge to establish some, not game philosophy or an idea of a game then of South Africa. That's it, that you have your own style of playing water polo. Also during the big tournaments then, and to have some basics developed during or within the team. Yeah. So when somebody's doing some action that the other one in the pool knows, okay, this comes next. Yeah. So this is then, I could imagine, not so easy to develop also for your team or from your idea of playing water polo.
Yeah. So I think, like with any sport, the more time you spend together, the better you're gonna get, and that's unfortunately a privilege that we don't have. And we always travel to these big events and play against the best of the best of the best. So it's very difficult to sort of iron out a game plan when you're playing Spain, Serbia, Montenegro. So our challenge is time together. And then also just from a general match fitness perspective, you can swim up and down in lines as much as you want, but until you've played those international matches at that level of intensity of physicality, it's not the same. So we always find ourselves going to these tournaments. I think like Berlin as an example, we travel quite late because it's a costing issue. Every night we stay in Europe is more expensive. So we get there, and our first preparation match is the first match of the tournament. So we sort of start out well. I think our first game was China, and we actually went 2 goals up, and then the jet lag, the fatigue, and the lack of match conditioning kicks in, and then we sort of slowly fade away and dip, and then by the end of the tournament we sort of finding our feet. We've got a bit of time together. We've found some groove and cohesion, and we generally finish relatively strong. So these are the issues we face, and we need to try and find solutions for. Unfortunately, those solutions, generally speaking, come down to money. The more money you have, the earlier you can get out there. You can play 3-4 training games, and then the tournament starts.
So in this case, it would be interesting to see what will then be the result maybe during the tournament, when you have the time, maybe, I don't know, 1 week before the tournament starts to come over, or to travel to the location, and maybe to have some practice games before, and then do not use the first game of the tournament as a practice game, or to come into the tournament. Yeah, so this would be interesting. Yeah, so maybe then when you get the funding issue solved somehow, so then I'm it sounds to me that it's pretty sure logical that the results will be better at the end. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, we hope so. We hope so.
So when you say you play against really the top nations of water polo, are there any nations where you say, okay, this is some kind also slightly my idea, or this is of playing water polo, or some kind the character of the game saying, okay, this would be then maybe from your perspective as a coach, as a national coach of South Africa, then also the philosophy, the idea of playing water polo then in the future of South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't have to look very, very far to see the top nations or what they're doing and how they're doing it. I mean, with I think in the recent years, the coverage of water polo has got really good. I mean, you can watch all the World Cup games were streamed, the under-20 World Champs, 18, 16, all of that. So there's actually a lot of footage out there which is great for countries like South Africa, all these sort of developing countries to have a look and understand and see what the top guys are doing. I think the trick is to have a look at that and then see what realistically can be implemented from a South African context in terms of the players we've got. You know, how can we do it, and how can we make it work for us? And I think you mentioned it earlier. I think to try and establish, you know, what is South Africa's brand of water polo, or more specifically, what is the national men's team's brand of water polo based on the players that we've got. You know, we're never going to have the biggest players. All the big human beings in South Africa play rugby, so we've got to try and be, I think, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more movement orientated. You know, I think a country like Japan has been incredibly good at establishing their own brand, working to their own strengths, and they've really upset a couple of bigger water polo playing nations, certainly over the last 5 years. So I think a country like that's really sort of inspirational to the rest of us, to show what can be done if you embrace your own sort of culture and you look at obviously what's happening in Europe, but you try and implement that in your own country. So I think that's one of the tricks moving forward.
Yeah. So and also the all the things which are available today. Yeah. So you mentioned all the video coverage and streaming services and so on. So which is not only for South Africa, I guess, really a big step ahead. Yeah, so that everything is, well, not everything, but more or less everything is available. You can watch this live or on demand or whatever. Try to find also some things for your personal team or game or idea, strategy of a game, but I totally agree that you have then to be some kind of or somehow realistic at the end. Yeah. So because not everybody has the same kind of player like in Serbia, Montenegro, or Spain. Then you have to work with the players you have. Yeah. To find then the best way maybe to implement these kind of ideas and strategies and things, maybe also minor things, then to get this transferred to your people and your team. And this is, I guess, or I would say the biggest challenge then for countries like South Africa, maybe also at the moment Germany, to see how the big ones are doing this and how to get this somehow implemented in our game. Yeah, so because not everybody have some players like Perone or whatever. It's or from Serbia. Yeah, so some people players. It's not really easy. Yeah, so this is, I guess, or I would assume, then the biggest challenge.
Yes, absolutely.
You already mentioned the World Cup in Berlin. Yeah, so where we met then the first time in person. how do you plan or organize these kind of events? So you mentioned that you really come to the locations not late, but not really with the appropriate time before, maybe then to get the best preparation for these kind of games. How was it in Germany? So how was it in Berlin then to organize or to motivate the people and the team?
I think, you know, the logistics aside and the sort of late nature of our travel apart, I think that